This podcast is made possible by the generosity of listeners like you. Kindly consider a contribution through Patreon or PayPal. Links are in the details box. Patreon is a monthly subscription that you can cancel anytime, and PayPal is a one-time donation. Any amount is appreciated. And follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, the handle, the Beirut Banyan. And you can find us on our YouTube channel with the same name, and you can start watching the episodes as they're released. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. I'm Ronnie Shatah, and this is the Beirut Banyan. Georgio, I'll start by saying that I get message requests from time to time. I tend to maybe look at them carefully because I have had people sending me their CVs, their resumes. They're asking to be on the podcast, and I don't know what to tell. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's unrelated altogether, and I reply one by one. Now I had to do some vetting. I had to make sure you're real because you have a computer box as your profile.
Yeah.
You have a very strange .xyz website, and you're more or less hidden online. So I want to make sure first you're real, you're human, not a strange bot, hacking me, and that you are who you say you are, that you're a Lebanese citizen who is concerned and wants to talk about an issue that matters to you. So a little bit of vetting, and I made sure, yeah, you're real. I had to make sure at first that your name exists because I don't think that's your name. The way you sent it, it had just Georgio, and that's like sort of a one name. Yeah, it's like, okay, what's the last name? Just to be sure.
My last name also is the mayor did a mistake. My great grandpa's name is Ula. So my last name isn't actually Nula, but it was like a mistake.
Oh, I see. So it turns out my vetting was really bad. It turns out you're not who you say you are. No, I'm just teasing you. But I'm glad you wanted to discuss an issue that I know little about, and it's the telecom sector. And you have some personal experience you wanted to share, and you have maybe some work experience and maybe your own way of trying to improve the situation in Lebanon, and these sort of very, very interesting sort of portfolio. Before we get into telecoms, before we get into your own personal work, can you just explain yourself a bit? I know you told me that you're an LAU dropout, and you're now a proud NDU student. Okay, so let's start from there. Maybe your academic experience, and also that brief stint you had in the U.S. when you were a student and working in the U.S. Just your own. Let's start with your personal story.
All right. So I started off as I'm basically the first person in my extended family to go to university.
Oh, wow.
So we were opting to go to a good university, and LU was the option because it was in Byblos, and I live in Kura. So it was kind of the better option for us. We couldn't get to Beirut to go to AUB. So I started off there, and I was really passionate about computer science since I was like a kid. So I thought this would be like something I would really be good at. And I went to the US to visit some family, and then I had the opportunity to apply to a university there and see if I can get like a status. I wanted to flip my visa from like a visitor to student.
Oh, right.
But that took a very long time, and it was backlogging. So I tried to make the most of my time in the U.S. I visited New York. I stayed with one of my friends from university that I met here, and I managed to meet some really cool people and had a very nice experience there. And then, like, after a while, I just gave up on like getting the student status. So I just came back and just wanted to start like I want to finish my degree so that I can like have a solid thing that I can build on.
Well, Giorgio, sorry, I want to ask you. You were studying computer science in LAU.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you were visiting the U.S. as just a tourist, and you thought about sort of continuing your studies in the U.S. Sorry, that's 2018. Did I get that right?
17, 18.
17, 18. Okay. What was your experience like in the U.S. Even though you didn't become a student at the end, you didn't sort of transition to student visa. What was your experience like in the computer science
honestly,
sector?
It was quite shocking, honestly. Like I came here from a place where it was quite competitive. Like the people, my colleagues at university, the people I used to meet here, that like they used to tell me about what they went through to get a job and how much effort they had to put in, and like how actually we're competitive between one another as peers in university. But when I went there and I went to some random conferences where people just go and talk about fun things that they do in their free time, like things that have to do with programming and stuff like that. So I just saw like a whole community of people trying to help each other out to come up with something that's good for everyone. And from that I saw also that there's like not much competition over there. Actually, it's the opposite. There's so much demand for people to work in this field over there that like it took me a while to comprehend this like conflict between the society in the US and the society in Lebanon. But this made me realize like how much opportunities that we're wasting here just because we have like a couple of bad components that we can relatively cheaply fix over here, and like we can easily compete and like benefit from working in this and like developing this sector in Lebanon.
So it's not about too many people in Lebanon aiming for the same position. It's got nothing to do with that. It's not that there's limited opportunities.
So the thing in Lebanon, opportunities are limited because we're limiting ourselves in like our shell, like this country. However, like this works over the internet now. Like there's no borders whatsoever. I could be working for a company in the other side of the planet while sitting in my bedroom, which is like what I do right now. So
and you deal with people like me across the planet as well, talking about your issues across the planet. Yeah.
So like if this barrier would be like just unlocked by the government or like eased out, like if it were easier for us to get jobs outside and have companies be interested in actual people in our field here, it would be like so much better for society. I'm just speaking about my domain. I'm not really like familiar with other domains, but I think it might apply in some sort.
But when you reached out to me, you were in a way pointing at the telecom sector, and you sort of described yourself as a computer scientist and a sort of maybe a bit too passionate, that you were at the age of 12, you were handling your local internet provider's workload. I mean, you were kind of in a way becoming the mukhtar of the internet connection in Kura. So you have a deep passion for both computer science and telecoms. But you mentioned that the field offices is an issue in Lebanon, that you've actually been trying to reach out to even Ojero executives, that you wanted to see if you could perhaps bring some field offices to the country. Can you just maybe talk about that and what it was about your stay in America that made you see that as maybe a necessity for at least the stuff you were mentioning earlier, which is that there's so many people in Lebanon and it's the unhealthy type of competition as opposed to your experience in the US.
So the problem here is basically that the internet is just absurdly expensive. It's like, would you mind if I just put some numbers out? Just to
please
put
do. By the way, and that's something I should have acknowledged at the beginning, is that you're the expert here. So you if you want, like, this is your episode, you can do whatever you want. Yeah, let's consider an educational experience. Tell me as many details as you want about the sector.
All right. So suppose you have like a small office here and you want to hire like 40 people.
Mhm.
So on average, you should get these people about like 300 megabits per second, like the internet speed that you need to get. So in Lebanon, if you want to get like two dedicated capacity, like a line that connects your office to the submarine cable that connects us to the rest of the world,
Yeah.
you have to pay 165,000 liras per 2 megabits. So if you want 300 megabits, that's like 24,750,000, which is like,
Sorry, say that again. So that's 165,000 at the old rate, the 1005.
yeah,
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 so that's
but it's still expensive.
right,
even
right,
if you
sure,
have
sure. So it's let's say $110 for two megabytes?
for two. So you need like two does not work for anyone. The way we have internet right now is that someone aggregates, like gets 50, for example, and shares it with everyone in the town. So he pays the bill for 50 and he splits it for everyone. That's how it works. Like that's how we have affordable internet. So yeah, so if you wanted to have like a company, you can't like afford to share the connection with other people. You need your own line.
Right.
So this is just like for a small 40 people office. So when I was in New York, for example, just to put things in comparison, when I was in New York, I was able to volunteer with a community internet provider called NYC Mesh. They're very nice people. They just basically put antennas on top of rooftops in New York and just give internet for free for everyone. So these people have like a 1 gigabit dedicated line. So we're kind of, it's like 3 times almost the capacity per office here, and they just get it for free. There.
It's really they don't pay for it.
Yeah, just like there's a big building. It's called like the Verizon building in New York. They just pay for the spot for the antenna on top, and they're just hooked up with cable, and they just got like 3 times the capacity of what you would pay an absurd amount for here for free. They're just giving it up. So like in comparison, if you want to like this is a small office. If you're like a Google and you want to open up an office here, you're looking in hundreds of millions of liras per month just to operate an office. So this discourages automatically any company from opening here. Just go to neighboring countries, Egypt, the UAE, everywhere it's cheaper than here.
Oh, so I didn't know that. So Lebanon is more expensive than the neighborhood when it comes to.
Yeah.
Can I ask why is that the case? What is the?
So this is actually kind of a political issue. The price that has been set like a decade ago. So this is a rapidly evolving field. What used to be fast internet 10 years ago is super slow right now. So the current debate right now,
like in other words, 2 megabytes 10 years ago was an impressive connection.
Yeah.
And right.
Probably more than 10 years ago. I'm not really sure about the date exactly. But the thing is now in politics, if you go out as like the minister of telecom and you say you want to make the internet cheaper, while there's other people boasting about how much revenue this sector is providing to the government, you're gonna be like ridiculed and laughed at. But the thing is that if you lower the price, people are actually gonna demand more. So they're gonna pay the same. If I have a 2 megabit speed right now and it's super slow and I just had to switch connections, I wouldn't mind paying the same price for something faster because it's something that I can already afford. And in addition, if you reduce the prices, you would attract companies from abroad to like open up here, for example, or I don't know, you can do like countless field, like I can't imagine how much sectors currently could use a cheaper internet connection right now.
But I'm just curious because I mean, again, I'm a novice at the subject. That a place like a city like Dubai has a lot of these field offices. I'm curious in terms of the regulation. What is the stumbling block to getting those prices lowered? And maybe
we have in 2012 we installed a very large submarine cable. I'm not sure if
I
if
remember
you kind of
this.
remember, it
Yeah,
made
of
the
course.
news and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So right now, we are using 20% of the capacity offered by this line. So we paid for something like a huge pipe of water, and we just have a small valve at the tip of it.
Right.
And the reason why we just use 20% is because of this pricing. And like the supply and demand thing balanced the thing that like we just use 20% of it for what we pay. But then we can like use 100% for free, basically, if you just reduce the prices.
Neither one of us are politicians. We don't have access to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm curious, is it simply an issue of corruption that everyone's talking about the last few months? That this is mismanagement and the money is going to the wrong place? Or is it something beyond that, that the telecom sector, in a way, is outdated, that it's not sort of up to speed? Because I'm curious why 10 years ago or longer, Lebanon was not doing so bad compared to the region, and now it took a nosedive. Like, what is it about the sector and maybe the regulations and maybe corruption that has brought us to this point?
I mean, I don't know how to put this, but like, suppose that you're like a massive trillion-dollar company, you want to open an office in Lebanon. The only way you can make them an exception is that by going to the cabinet and having everyone agree that this company should get an exception. It's not like one person can make the decision. It needs consensus. So it's like we're going back to the discussion with Mona from the previous episode. Everything needs consensus. So even like things like that like it's like for people in the field, even like the person I had the conversation with at Ojero, he's just sounded hopeless. He just needed like
Yeah, but can you tell me about that? I mean, as much as you can about that conversation. That's somebody within the sector who's disillusioned. So yeah, just share what you can from that.
what they're opting for is just having like Ojero as a private like it's currently there's like a conflict between what Ojero is. Does it manage the internet? Does it own what the cable stuff? Does it have to repair? It's totally ambiguous even by them. Like they don't know if they're supposed to fix a cable or if they're supposed to like hire someone to fix the cable or if it's the ministry's responsibility. They just have to go in this debate every time something happens or every time the project has to like be deployed for like I'll give you an example. In my town, they were just digging, and
I was gonna say, this is what I was gonna ask you. Did they start digging? Yeah, I mean, that's my relationship to Ojero is yeah.
But it wasn't Ojero who was digging. It was like they were laying water pipes,
Oh, okay.
and then the clever engineer just put the map out wrong, and they just dug they just cut the phone cable,
Yeah.
and it was like patched, but using like electrical tape
Jesus.
in 2014, 15, and it still hasn't been fixed till now. So like when you use the phone, it's just it's just like they're in conflict about who's supposed to fix the line. Is it the contractor? Is it Ojero? Is it the municipality? Is it the Ministry of Telecom? Just going back and forth for like years.
So the telecom problems are like the electricity problems in that sense. That it's just layers and layers of trying to reach some compromise that doesn't add up, and then you have a failing ministry. The internet speed is low, but it's maintained. So is it matter of literally just unlocking something that is being locked because the money is not being agreed to? I mean, because you said 20% of the bandwidth is being tapped into. The 80% that's not. Is it sort of being used as leverage? Why wouldn't it be a simple, let's open this up and all of us take advantage?
As far as I know from the conversation I had with the guy at Ojero, they have like spent a lot of money deploying fiber between big terminals in the country, and there's like a very reliable like a backhaul thing. Like you can connect a company in Tripoli to a company in Beirut as if they were in the same building. So we have a very reliable internal infrastructure. The problem is getting the a reliable connection between the terminal, like the central, to your home. That's the big problem. And
Right.
that's what needs a lot of money. So the alternative that's been going on here, like for decades, is just someone that has an antenna on the roof and just gives internet to everyone around us.
Yeah.
So they're putting tremendous pressure on these groups of people. They're kind of illegal, but there's no alternative. Like if I didn't have internet from that guy, I would have to like pay exorbitant amounts for Alpha and Touch to get a 4G connection, which is the only alternative.
Right. Right.
And
But sorry,
for example,
can I just interrupt? Sorry, this
yeah,
this guy that you're referring to, and I'm guessing it's the same guy that you've been helping since you were 12. It's the guy. I'm curious. Is this actually illegal in Lebanon or is it legal?
it's like they look the other way in some sort of way.
And they're getting their
So
internet. They're getting the internet from the same source. It's not like a different way of
yeah,
accumulating. Yeah.
Ojero is the source for the entire country. There's no other source.
So I'm curious, and I'm going to use an analogy. The way that the generators have kind of stepped in to provide electricity when the government doesn't, is it the same kind of situation that you have these other forms of, let's say, internet, that when Ojero doesn't deliver, you turn to the local provider? Is that kind of the same situation?
It's actually more convoluted in the fact that you're actually getting the internet from Ojero at the end, but just it's not Ojero that's delivering it.
Right. So
So
the delivery
it's
is
like
not from
one
Ojero.
body
Yeah.
yeah, it's one body that's controlling everything from like controlling the pipe that gets in the country, like the line that gets into the country, to delivering it to the houses, the individual houses, and
Right.
everything in between. It's one body, and there's lots of points of failure. And it's mainly because basically lack of funding, because like everything Ojero has to spend has to be approved by the government.
So okay, but sorry, I interrupted you earlier. So you were kind of outlining the what stops the 80% from being accessed.
Oh yeah, so we can access the 80%. It's just that there's no demand for the 80% at the price that's being set right now.
Price. Okay. Yeah.
So if you're like a company in Beirut, you can easily access as much bandwidth as you would like if you pay enough.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right. We said it earlier, those field offices. Is that the ultimate stumbling block to getting a field office from whatever company? Could be Google, could be something else. Is that the main hurdle?
That's one hurdle, but like other hurdles are like getting money in and out of the country. Like you can't do online payments. You
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Okay, let's go from that to cryptocurrency, and it's something that I know nothing about. I'm going to depend on you to just maybe help explain the basics of it and how Lebanon kind of feeds into the story, because I do know from certain articles and just sort of tangential knowledge that this is a growing sector, and that maybe a country like Lebanon stands to benefit the most, given how horrible things are. So maybe just if you can do just like a 101 on cryptocurrency and then take it to the Lebanese side.
Actually, like cryptocurrencies are such a broad field that I'm just gonna go over the upper layer of it. It's just like a way to transfer an asset between one person to another without having anyone in the middle like be the mediator.
Right.
So I could send you money right now. I don't need the approval of a bank. I don't need anyone else's approval.
Yeah.
And it's completely like it's secured in a way that's really clever, in such a way that like a transaction is really hard to be. It's really hard to forge a transaction. It's really hard to come up with money out of thin air. But what gives it its actual value is people's trust in it, just like people's trust in a currency. So there's, for some sorts of cryptocurrencies, like for example Bitcoin, there's like a limited supply. There's like 21 million Bitcoins that will ever be in circulation. And then there's a sort of system in which every 10 minutes, 15 Bitcoins get released up to a certain point where we stop releasing Bitcoins. And then there's a way that incentivizes people to help perform the transaction, so that like it wouldn't be someone in the middle performing the transaction. It would be like a network of people, and then you would send your transaction. It would go through like multiple nodes until it hits you in some other country, or
Right.
So there's like this incentive for people to run transactions and just decentralize the whole thing without like having a central body controlling everything. Of course, this is like the ideal version of cryptocurrency. This is not the actual reality right now of it. It gets like super complicated, and it depends on the actual cryptocurrency you want to use. But like for now in Lebanon, as far as my personal experience, it's really hard to use. Like we could have like people do transactions in cryptocurrency. It just, you need the people to believe in the value of the actual thing, and you need to like import cryptocurrencies, which you have to pay for in dollars, which we can't do right now.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. So you have to use dollar for Bitcoin imports. I didn't know that.
I mean, unless someone is like super generous and just floods us
Right.
with cryptocurrency.
So
there's no.
The lure of cryptocurrency also depends on stability in that sense. You can't sort of avoid a local economies or local currency hyperinflation. You still need some relative calm to use Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general. Okay.
The advantage of it is that like no matter how bad the government is, it's not going to affect the actual value of the thing you own once you own it.
Right.
You know, it's not like lira. It's not like it's like more stable. It gives you less anxiety.
I don't know anyone who's using cryptocurrency. Although I know it exists. I know it's there, but I don't know anyone kind of sort of trying to lure me into ditching my money for virtual money.
It's like really hard. It's still like a growing concept. It's gonna get to a point where it's gonna be like there was something like the SEC yesterday released the claim that okay, they're gonna loosen up the regulations, allow Bitcoin to, or other cryptocurrencies to integrate in the American economy. That was just like yesterday. So in the future, I see this like becoming more and more the norm.
Right. Yeah.
But like if we look at what's happening right now, for example, in Lebanon, it's super shady. It's like it's like dealing with drugs. Like if you want to if you get paid, for example, you work abroad and you get paid in cryptocurrency, and you want to be paid in like actual tangible currency that you can use in the country, like dollars, you have to go meet a guy who takes a cut, and then you have to like orchestrate the whole thing, and it's super shady and ugly, and I just like nobody wants to deal with that. They would rather keep the lira and rely on that.
That's a selling point for the lira. It sounds like a late night drug deal or something. No, I prefer lira.
Yeah.
Your frustration, and I think part of the reason you reached out to me, is to kind of express the disadvantages of someone like you, who has the technical know-how, somebody who studied the topic and worked in the topic, but is sort of, has to apply a lot of effort to at least work in this field and work comfortably, not work sort of at a disadvantage. Any remote work where there's a population that can provide a lot of skill and talent, and then there's a requirement to have a physical presence from that company. Is there any way to kind of bridge that? Because I know that you mentioned that you want to see more field offices in Lebanon, and you also mentioned that there's very unlikely, it's an unlikely achievement anytime soon. And I know that you work remotely for a company that doesn't require that kind of presence per se, but for other people that are facing a similar situation.
So this Corona thing that's been going on recently might help us, like, with this kind of requirement of a field office, because all the companies have been forced to try remote work. So I
Right.
think
Yeah.
they will be more encouraged, given this experience that they were forced to go through, to people remotely. It's not that all companies require field offices. It's just like the massive companies like Google or Facebook or Amazon.
Yeah.
These are companies that they would prefer having a field office with. But there are lots of companies that don't require field offices at all. But the thing is that that's another problem. There's not much confidence in, like, the Lebanese kind of community. It's not the community as a whole. It's like there's, I don't know how to put this. Like, how would you trust that if you hire someone who graduated from this university to be actually competent, or if he worked in companies in this country, that he was actually doing something that like is relevant to the job that you're offering to him, things like that. What I think could help us in this field is having universities be more active in the community as a university, not just as a place where you go get a degree and leave. Like, what would stop universities from applying for research grants and then having undergraduate students do undergrad research and then publish it, and then they would just automatically get credibility? This doesn't happen here.
It's a good question, actually. Let me ask you. You've been in two universities, LAU and NDU, and I don't know about AUB or San Josef if they do this, if they kind of are the same situation. Why isn't that sort of more on the radar?
Honestly, I have no idea. I mean, I wish that was the case. I wish that there was a university where they could be paid for companies to hire people, to hire their graduates, just because they have like this background and history of publishing work and doing actually relevant stuff. This doesn't happen here. Maybe I'm not sure why, but it could be because professors are too busy. There's not much people on campus.
So it doesn't have to do with bandwidth or the same problems.
No, this has nothing at all.
Huh.
This is something completely different, and this is a good problem to be solved, actually. Like, yeah, some companies also just apply for grants and get them and work on them, but it's just this thing where there's not much trust. Like, if you apply for a grant from here, like, who are you?
In your personal experience as a student, and I hope I remember this correctly, you're still an undergraduate student.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're still in the university domain.
Yeah.
But you've also worked. You spent 2 years, and you've spent years actually in the U.S. in between. So it's not like you're not an existential student. You went back to university.
Yeah.
What for you? What are the? I mean, what do you see are the constraints? Because it's a point worth exploring a bit. You're a student. You're capable, more than capable, and if anything, I mean, that would be your natural ecosystem, to have an institution with reliable sort of that's where you would do it. And in terms of reputation as well, it's probably easier to get the grant. So why doesn't NDU do something like that? And from your own side, like what?
Like, people are getting laid off. There's no budget. Like, this is kind of like an investment. You need to invest in people to just do research. Like, for example, a university could pay professors to do some research, publish it, then get credibility, and use that credibility to get more grants and get more money in, to do more things. This is like an opportunity for growth that's not happening right now.
That's interesting. I never really, you're the first person I've spoken to about this subject, and there is money, there is grant money, but I know nothing about computer science, and I would assume that kind of the sciences and engineering and the likes and computer engineering, and I would assume that that's getting the bulk of the money, but I guess that's not the case. I imagine that that's where the money would be pumped to, because that's the sort of the biggest sector at the moment. That's among the most important.
Yeah, I agree. There's if you look around in universities, you see like these massive engineering complexes and buildings that are being built, and people are donating it. But they're just, from what I see, these donations are like going for like thing that like appearances more than actual investment in academic work. So like, okay, you're LAU, you're a very prestigious, relatively prestigious university in Lebanon. You go build a new fancy engineering building, but then there's no new research that's coming out. You're just producing engineers, and that's it. That's like, it's like a production line. There's no actual innovation that's going on.
So the emphasis in that sense, which makes sense, the university should be focusing on things like research and not sending their students abroad, the way that it sort of happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're. Well, maybe this is your calling, Georgio. Why don't you go to NDU tomorrow and knock on their door and say hello?
We're not really sure if we're gonna have a fall semester.
Yeah, that's actually, you're right. But that's the point as well, that you said it earlier, that COVID has maybe allowed for someone like you to have more opportunities than before. As someone your age, still in Lebanon, who went abroad, tried staying abroad, didn't happen, went home, and you're now in Lebanon in the middle of this whole mess. You're somebody who wants to work. You are working for a remote job, but it's maybe not everything you'd like to do, and you have serious frustrations, and you're taking, I mean, I don't know anybody, a student, undergraduate student, who gets an appointment with an Ogero executive to explain to Ogero how to improve their services. I don't know anyone like this. So you're proactive. You're very proactive in your field. And I'm guessing if these opportunities were available in Lebanon, you'd probably not think about leaving. I'm assuming it's sort of. Of
course not.
You would stick around.
Not.
So
of course,
somebody in your shoes, what do you see as, in a way? I mean, can you maybe share any positives that you have in your day-to-day life, and if there aren't any, the negatives that have consumed you? Just maybe like a personal reflection on where you are today, as somebody with a lot of potential and also stuck, and watching a country that's deteriorating, and yet still trying, still pushing, trying to see some hope at the end.
So honestly, like, I think everyone my age has this constant thought about leaving and just securing a life outside. I wish I could make a living. Like, I don't want anything. I don't want to live a fancy life and whatever, own a big fancy car and stuff. I would be very happy if I could live comfortably without having to worry about not being able to pay the bills, etc., and being able to contribute to society here. I would do that instead of like a $500,000 contract abroad. I would do that without thinking. But yeah. I feel like I'm useless here. Honestly, I can't find a place where I can have this conversation that we're having right now. I can't, like, every time I go ask people, like, why is this not happening? They say, that's it. Like, we're just like, everyone gave up. But I think there's hope. Like, it's not that there's hope. We can, like, create things and make opportunities if we wanted to, but there's nothing that's helping us to do that. Like, say I want to open up a company here, and I want to do some projects for a company that's abroad. I could do that, but like, it's so hard going outside the country, meeting a client, convincing them that you're actually going to be able to do the job, and then coming back, doing the job. And this first step is the hardest. Once you get over this step, it just goes on. Like, you built your reputation, you can go on, get more business. So this is starting the wheel. It's like the hardest part that we're facing right now.
But I like that your domain, and you said it at the beginning, there's no borders. There's bottleneck. Mm-hmm. There are many bottlenecks, but there are no borders. And the bottlenecks I think are clogging the Lebanese space. But you're still, if you're able to navigate them, computer science, telecoms, and the like, you're able to, as you said, be on anywhere on planet Earth and do what you do. So do you see that as maybe that is the lifeline, so to speak, for someone like you, that you don't have to necessarily really depend on the local situation. As long as you have some access to the outside world, someone like you can still survive.
It could be, yeah, it could be. As long as we still have electricity, it could be. That's like I just like last week I just went and bought some solar panels. If I could get like satellite internet, I wouldn't mind. I'm trying to be as off grid as possible so that I don't have to worry about the electricity going out or stuff like that. So what's kind of depressing is that these things that like are super simple in comparison to other countries, and like yeah, I don't know.
No, but
yeah, this is a lifeline. This is definitely a lifeline for people who work in the same field.
You bought your own solar panels?
Yeah.
Do you know how to install solar panels? I mean, did you?
I just had my friend like help me out. He works at a.
Are they working?
Yeah.
Are we using solar panel electricity right now?
Oh no, not right now. It's just like 2 days. I'm still charging the battery.
Are you still charging?
Next week maybe.
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's the kind of that's the sad end. That's the very painful side of the creative spirit of Lebanon, is that a student goes and buys his own solar panels to be able to live a life that requires electricity and internet.
Yeah.
And you're not letting yourself sit at home and just sort of decay. You're still trying. I actually admire somebody who's doing that and also calling Ojero and trying to offer, healthier ways forward. And I think, and I'll let you sort of add to this, I think that is the ultimate stumbling block, always, that there's a lot of talented people, many, and you said it at the beginning, that a competitive streak, because there's so many people in this field in Lebanon. So there's a lot of skilled labor, and then you have a lot of skilled stumbling blocks, and the institutions in particular are not interested. But I don't envy anyone that has to schedule an episode on the electricity grid, and I know that we talked about this, that there's a very good chance it's going to cut in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So maybe we can leave it here. Is there anything you wanted to add to the conversation, Georgio?
No, I guess thank you very much for having this conversation with me. I've been longing to have this conversation with someone.
Is there anything you want to get off your chest, given that we have 5 minutes left before electricity goes? Do you want to curse anyone in particular? Do you want to,
If there's anyone listening from the government, please let us work. We can bring in dollars from outside. Just let us work.
It's well said. Even if it's cryptocurrency, you can still bring it.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Well said. Georgio, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. And a friendly reminder to help support this podcast by contributing through Patreon or PayPal. All links are in the details box below. Until next time, I'm Ronnie Shatah, and this is the Beirut Banyan.